karishyami siddhir bhavatu me sada nidhaye sarva vidyanam bishaje bhavaroginam gurave sarva lokanam dakshinamurtaye namah. Om sahana vavatu sahanau hunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Welcome you all for this 17th, I think, session of online Bhagavad Gita, which was broadcast, which was happening in person at the Hindu temple of Allentown. And due to the current COVID crisis, we have gone online. And we are seeing chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, and we are looking into Bhagavan Sri Krishna's answer for Arjuna's question. Arjuna had a question regarding the wise person. What is a description? How does he conduct himself? We are all curious about the same facts regarding the wise person, right? Especially now, India, I would again say that is a supermarket for spirituality. So there we are always seeking to see if someone is really wise. If someone is really learned, that is easy to find. We just have to ask us, where did you do the course, or where did you study Vedanta? He might tell, I studied with Swamiji, Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Or he might say, I studied 12 years in, say, Kashi or Haridwar. That we can always ask and find out. Whereas whether someone is a Brahma Nishtha, that is always a big question mark. That is why, to be safe, they always ask you to go to a Stotriya. Stotriya is someone who is learned. Whether he is Brahma Nishtha or not, his teaching might make you one. This is the advantage of going to a learned person. And this is true with all subject matters also, right? All other subject matters also this holds. Now, Bhagavan Sri Krishna's answer, we're going to see it continue in this shloka number 60 of the second chapter. We just saw before this in the last session that how it is a very treacherous path, if I may use the word, of being steady in this nishtha. Nishtha is being steady about this wisdom, and how the indriya, the senses, and the vishaya of the senses, and how the senses can be managed like that of a tortoise or a turtle. Kurmonganiva sarvashaha. How it can effortlessly withdraw and effortlessly spread it out, its limbs. So we saw that in the last section. Very beautiful example, right? So we'll continue with that discussion. Here, this verse talks about the same importance of taking care of the senses, and it says how it can be a big pitfall. Even for someone who is putting effort with all his awareness, with all his prajna, is putting effort, but even for him, it can be a pitfall. So that is the discussion here. So that is why Adav, initially, we have to work on this area also. Which area? The area of managing our senses, including the mind. We'll see that. Let us get into this shloka. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha Purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manah haranti prasabham manah. So Arjuna is being addressed by Bhagavan as Kaunteya. Hey Kaunteya, he indeed, therefore indeed, we get to that. Pramathini. Pramathini, what is there? Pramathini means this is very forceful. What is very forceful? Because forceful is an adjective, right? Indriyani. The Indriyas are very forceful. And they are not the villains. As Swamiji said in the last class, Puja Swamiji, I was mentioning, they are not the villains, but then our capacity, if we are incapacitated in managing them, they look there as though they're the villains. They are just instruments, right? They're just instruments. Then Indriyani, this Indriyani, Yatataha, the one who's committed, Viveki, who's committed to this self-knowledge, even for him, Vipaschitaha, and not only is committed, he is Vipaschitaha, which means Pashya. Pashya means to see. And Drishya from Drish Dhatu, the word Pash comes. Pash means to see. This person, Vipaschitaha, is very clearly able to see even from a distance. Even for such a person, even for that Purusha, Purushasya, all these words are there in the shloka. Api, even for him, his mind, Manaha, Prasabham haranti, even while he is watching, in the bhari hue sabha mein, prasabham, in that, even while he is watching, very viciously, prasabham means very viciously and very daringly, haranti, it robs, it takes his mind away, it subdues his intellect. Which subdues intellect? The indriyas which are not well managed. The indriyas which are not in one's own hands. The senses and the mind which is not in one's own hand can do this job of robbing our intellect. And as a result, the steadiness in the knowledge will be affected. So that will affect someone who is in the path of taking up to this knowledge and gaining wisdom. Because the topic is wise person, and especially wise person, whatever is natural to him, whatever is good and natural to him is becoming our sadhana, our practice. So what is natural to him would be something we practice, and so we have to be working on this area of vashikarana of our senses also. Now you see, in this shloka, what does the word yatataha mean? Yatataha, as I told you, is someone who's putting effort, but then he is putting effort in what area? He's repeatedly striving, repeatedly making effort in which area? He is doing that in the area where all he can be very objective. So he's always bringing his objectivity, in the place of his subjectivity in any area. He's keep on practicing this, bringing his objectivity. Puja Swami says, even when the boss is, it's seemingly very subjective, you still try to be objective, and he says over time that can bring a change. Even in spite of someone else being subjective or someone else seemingly being subjective, we being objective by practicing can bring the change. This yatataha, this is the area where he practices. And objectivity can include dosha darshana also. Objectivity can include some dosha darshana. You see the defects. of going behind your senses. You see the defects of going behind your senses and having your mind out of control. Again and again. This is a practice. Not as an imposition we are asking you to do again and again. Why? Because again and again? Because it can easily rob us away. That is why. So, since this is being the case, even for him, He Kauntaya Purushasya Vipashitaha Medhavinah. Vipashita word is also Bhagavan Bhashyakara Shankaracharya says Medhavinah. Medhavi is one who's got a great memory and who knows this situation. I know is going to, if I react this way, it's going to cause me trouble. He knows that memory is there. And that memory, and he is able to recollect that and all that. Even for him, api iti vyavahitena sambandha. Even for him, and what to talk about as kim punaha murkasya. What to talk about a layman, or what to talk about even someone who's putting so much effort like us. When even for a medhavi, this is a problem. We use the word medhavi sometimes very satirically. वो मेधावी है, वो कुछ सुनता नहीं, or he won't listen to you, he's a medhavi. Like that, they make a satirical statement also sometimes. So that is that kind of a person. Even for him, Indriyani Pramathini we saw, and Pramatana Shilani. Matha. See, Mathana, it means churning. The Matani, Matni or Matani, they say in Hindi, which means the churning rod. Pramathana Shilani means this Indriyas can stir him up, this person. Take him away out of his own control, out of his own, out of his own overlordship, can take him away. And Vishayabhimukam, and then it will turn towards the Vishaya. It will make him run after his likes and dislikes. It can do that to him. And so that it means, the person runs means the mind runs. He may be not moving at all. When I say run means the mind is all over. That's what when I say the person is all over, it means the mind is all over. Purusham vikshepa vikshobhayanti akuli kurvanti. Vikshepa kurvanti akuli kurvanti. These are the words, adjectives they are using for this person, for this disturbance, which is he's shaken up, and he not just shaken up, he feels confounded also. So initially it looks like this is what is freedom is. What is freedom? To be able to go after our senses. That looks like freedom initially, but that same thing will make this person bound, confound. See, there's a word called Paravasha. Pujya Swamiji is using this word. There's a word called Paravasha, and then there's a word called Atmavasha. Sarvam Paravasham Dukkham, Atmavasham Sukham. Paravasha means when something is someone else's control. Like in our case, in this context, the control is in the hands of if it's in the hands of the senses and sense objects, which can be situations, which can be people, which need not be just an object. It can be people, situation. When the control is there, that much limited we find ourselves. So this is not freedom. Going after senses is not freedom. Eventually we will find ourselves confound and bound. And so the freedom is what? So freedom is when you have the senses in your hands, that much freedom. When the senses are free, you're not free. When senses are in your hand, you're free. See how it works? So this is how it works. So this is for the person, and so this is about description of the problem, right? This is a description of the problem. Haranti prasabham prasahya prakashameva. This mind of this person is all intellect. although this mind is so has been seeing very clearly, even for that mind, haranti, like a highway robber. This is not a thief. A thief is someone who is scared of you. He stealthily comes in the night when everyone is sleeping. But here the senses are all open and your eyes are open, your mind is open. Like the robber or a thug who kind of, even as you're seeing, he does this job of stealing. That is how the senses which are out of control, that is how they work. Pashyatah viveka vijnana yuktam manah. Even when there is viveka in the mind, it can cause such an havoc. The senses can cause such havoc. Why? We saw that rasa varjam rasopetam param drishtva nivartate. The last verse we saw that rasa will be reminding, because it is not just about controlling the senses, it is not just about suppressing the senses. Because when we suppress, I use the word suppress. Why? Because when there is some emotional value left, because this person has got some intellect and is able to see somewhat, but if that emotional value is remaining, as and when he is perceiving knowledge also, that emotional value can pull the carpet under his feet. That is, the emotional value is called rasa. So the rasa, the little lingering taste, can grow so much and cause such a havoc. Now this is the description. This verse is the description of the problem, right? Now we have to see, Bhagavan is always kind. He describes the problem so well, or if Bhagavan is not putting it, then the Bhashyakara, our Shankaracharya Maharaj puts it so clearly, and our Pujya Swamiji also expands it so well and makes it so relevant. So that is how it works. Then the solution also has been told, and the solution also is being described very elaborately. Let's see that in the next shloka. So, since this being the case, therefore, the next shloka, which is shloka number 61. Tani sarvani sanyamya, tani sarvani sanyamya, yukta asita matparah, yukta asita matparah, vashe hi yasyendriyani, vashe hi yasyendriyani, tasya prajna pratisthita, tasya prajna pratisthita. So this is maybe the fourth or third time we are seeing this last part of the shloka. Tasya prajna pratisthita. That is the goal. That is the goal for the sadhaka, to have a steadiness of vision which works, the vision that works effortlessly in all situations for all of us. That steadiness is what we are trying to. And the steadiness happens when the object of that wisdom is study. The object of the wisdom can be study when it is Brahma, when it is your own self. Because your own self is free from the limitation of the body, mind and senses, free from the changes of the body in terms of old age, death and disease and all that. So then you see that steadiness is there in you. And when we have a clear knowledge about that steadiness, naturally, that person also is steady. So, Tani, let us look from the beginning of the shloka. Ataha, therefore, Tani sarvani sanyamya, sarvani sanyamya. Sarvani, Tani, sarvani is all adjective for what? Sarva, all. Tani, those all, or these all. Tani sarvani sanyamya. Sarvani indriyani, all the senses may we have in our vasha, not paravasha, in atma vasha, may we have in our hands. See, I don't use the word control. May we have them in our hands. That if the instrument is in your hands, if the instrument for protecting yourself, or the instrument, if it's your hands, then you can use it as your tool. If it is in someone's hands, that same knife or something in your hands, if it is in someone else's hands, if it is in the enemy's hands, it becomes inimical to you. It becomes a disadvantage for you. So having things in your hands makes all the difference. Tani sarvani sanyamya yuktaha, having yuktaha means contemplative, is connected, is associated with matparaha. Associated with what? Matparaha asita. Asita means is seated. Seated. Mentally is seated. Mentally is relaxed. Mentally, he has that stability in all situations. Because by becoming matparaha. Matparaha, mat is Bhagavad paraha. Bhagavad paraha, contemplation in me. The translation is Bhagavad paraha. Contemplative about me, he is seated. It can be open eye meditation also. It can be, when Arjuna is fighting also, it can be, that kind of a contemplative nature can be made, one can be endowed with. Yasya indriyani vashe, yasya indriyani vashe, when the indriyas in the vasha, when they are in his hands, tasya prajna pratishtita, his prajna, his vision is steady. His vision is steady. He is a wise man. He is a wise person. Okay? So, tani sarvani sanyamya vashikaranam krutva. Contemplative. See, when you want to be contemplative, you need to have the object of contemplation. Contemplative, contemplate means on what is the question. So here the answer is contemplative and be seated in matparaha. Matparaha. The matparaha is a compound, right? Matparaha is a compound. Aham Vasudevaha, that matparaha is a good word. Let us look into that word in a little detail before we go to the next sloka. Aham Vasudevaha sarva pratyagatma. This aham here, mat means Bhagavan is saying contemplative on me, seated in me. Arjuna is seated right next to Bhagavan. He cannot sit on Bhagavan, right? So then naturally when Bhagavan says seated in me, what does he mean? It doesn't mean seated in Vaikunta. So he means seated in my knowledge about myself. Who am I? I am Vasudevaha. Vasati iti Vasudevaha. One who is residing in every one of us. One who is residing in every one of us is Vasudeva. So he is not just born once for Vasudeva. Vasudeva is Bhagavan Sri Krishna's avatara. In the avatara is the father, Vasudeva. So here we are talking about that Vasudeva who is ever born in everyone's heart. Who is Pratyagatma, the self of you and me. The body of you and me is different. And the mind of you and me is different. And the intelligence, the knowledge of you and me is different. Everything is different. But what is common? What is common? That is common which can see the body as the body, which can see even the ways of the mind. That seer, that drika, seer, as Puja Swamiji would say, that seer you is unlike anything else in the world. That seer you is unlike any object in this world. And that is beyond any form also. As you can see, you cannot identify forever with the form of this body, right? And next Janma, we don't know what body we had and all that, right? So likewise, we can always negate everything else where we temporarily identify. Okay, even if you take, even if you want to say that, practically that, this is the body and this is me and all that, but I hope we cannot really identify for the whole time with the body, even if you are given everything. So sit and now just think about your body only for the next 24 hours. That doesn't happen, right? So we can see we are naturally beyond all this body mind senses, and that is called pratyagatma, which is the innermost self, we can say. That is what is you in reality, and that is what is you in reality for everyone. That sarva pratyagatma vasudeva paraha. Paraha means be on his side, be on the side, in a sense. May you obtain that Vasudeva as the self of everyone. Sarvesham bhutanam hidi pratyek rupena stitah. There's no, so when we say that, this is not about a Vasudeva who is far beyond of you in Goloka, and this is not about an outside, or this is not about an inside, like an atom or something. It is about you in reality. Na anyaha aham tasmat. The one who is not different, separate from you. The one Vasudeva who is not separate from you. That kind of a contemplative mind may you have about myself. That will give you that steadiness. Iti asita ityartah. So, evam asinasya yataha vashehi yasendriyani vartante. So, all the senses naturally will be withdraw itself from all the vishaya, not forever. When, like I said, the example what Bhagavan himself gives is like a tortoise. When it's required, it goes and conducts itself with all the senses. When it's not required, when it is none of our business, it sits quietly in its reality. And this is abhyasa balat, means this is something we can practice. The sense, having senses in our hands is something we can practice. We should awarefully practice. Vashehi yasendriyani. So it's not that we have to wait. We have to keep being very extrovert and do several things, and try to get everything done and all that, and then get this clarity. That's not the way it works. You work for the clarity as and when you conduct yourself in the world, and keep seeing that clarity work on you in your the way you conduct. Right? That is how it works. Yeah. So that is that. Then naturally, effortlessly, even without our knowing, the prajna, our knowledge will become steady. Whatever we gain through Vedanta, through Gita, that becomes steady naturally when we have this kind of a two-pronged approach. Clarity, for clarity you study, and also be very awareful about where and when our senses are taking us for a ride. So this two-pronged approach should really help us go a long way and not fall. This will help us to avoid the pitfalls. That is this shloka about. Now, ata idanim parabhavi. This is next two slokas are very interesting, very important also. We will have enough time to see those slokas, I think, and this is very important, very very popular also. How does it work? In the sense of if someone is given to his senses, because someone is given to his extreme likes and dislikes. Someone is being always taken away when something displeasing is happening, and someone is always seeking only the situation which is going to be pleasing for himself. His whole effort is about making everything pleasing for himself without being objective. So if that is the situation, if that is a person, what is the dosha? How does it work? What are the differences? How beautifully Bhagavan is sequencing the way the fall happens. The way the fall happens. I mentioned the word ladder of fall And I mentioned the ladder within quotes. In the sense, it's not a ladder, you just consciously climb down. No, this is just rolling down from the hilltop without you having any control. How does it happen? When does it go out of control? Where does it start, and when does situation go out of control? That is beautifully sequenced here by Bhagavan. We'll see that. When a person is overwhelmed, let us see what happens. Look at this shloka number 62. Dhyayate vishayan pumsah, dhyayate vishayan pumsah, sangasteshu pajayate, sangasteshu pajayate, sangat sanjayate kamah, sangat sanjayate kamah, kamat krodho bhijayate, kamat krodho bhijayate. Beautiful, right? The sequence has started here and it ends in the next shloka. The sequence of problem beautifully started here and it ends in the next shloka. So we'll see this shloka and then go to the next shloka. Vishayan. Vishayan is situations, people and objects and all that, and so many varied kinds of experience. One who is dhyayate, one who is always worried about them, who helplessly is only thinking about those situations, and who is only thinking about only is getting emotional about those situations. Emotional in the sense, not a positive emotion. It's more like a helplessly emotional person. And chintayatah vishayan pumsah, that person, teshu vishayeshu sangha, when that kind of a thought process keeps coming again and again about vishaya, teshu vishayeshu sangha, then naturally there's an association. When there's so much thinking of vishaya, and it can be a very pleasing situation or very displeasing situation, there's a sangha, there's a natural association, strong association. Upajayate, the association comes and sits. It may be like harmful, it may be a very harmless thought process, it looks like, but then the vishayas come and sit. And sangha, that sits, the association sits with that object of our thinking. Then after that, what happens? Sangat sanjayate kamah. Sangat kamah. Sangat kamah. The association creates a strong desire either to avoid or to obtain. Avoid or obtain, not just an object, avoid a certain situation or obtain a certain mental condition in a certain situation, not really in terms of what is right and wrong, but in terms of what you like and what you dislike strongly. So that can happen. Now, so that kama, the desire is there, and this desire can sanjayate, it naturally, it is not a desire out of your freedom, it is a desire out of your helpless contemplation. And contemplation, we saw in the last verse, is about Bhagavad Tattva, about your own true self. Here the contemplation is a helpless contemplation about the Vishaya, about the situations. And because of that helplessness, there is this desire, association and desire. And this is a natural process. Sanjayate means it naturally comes. It is as a rule, it happens. Tataha, and after that, kamat krodaha. Kamat krodaha. Krodaha, is an expression of anger. We all are familiar with the expressions of anger. So this kama can lead to anger. Obstructed kama, which will be seeing, can lead to anger. We'll see how that. So this is not the end of the sequence. The next verse, it continues. We'll do both these verses if possible. Before Swamiji's Bhagavatam starts, we have Swamiji with us now. So before it starts, we have to finish. Let's see how much we can go, because very interesting. Here, look at this. The dhyayatah, chintayatah. Chintayatah, as I told you, this person is open eyes. Dhyaya means meditation, right? We have heard the word Dhyana is meditation. Here, meditation, what we do, we close our eyes. But we are not here closing our eyes. We are opening our eyes, but mind is all over. Mind is all over all Vishya. That is the meditation here. So what is common between this and meditation? Mind is, not with you. Common thing is, it is constantly mind is thinking of something. Constantly mind is thinking of something, out of which Sajatiya Vritti Praha is to say. That is for dhyana they use. Here Sajatiya Vritti Praha regarding Vishaya. Vishayan. The Vishaya can be anything, as I told you. It can be situation, people, and all that, right? And so it's all something which the senses are reporting the Vishaya. The senses are reporting the objects to you, or the situations to you. Those Vishaya, mind is filled with those. And when you say Vishaya, you don't think of an object. You don't think of just a very general situation. We think of the Vishesha. We think of the Vishesha and the Vishaya. What is something is very peculiar, something is very special, something is very bothering, something is very pleasing. That kind of a speciality we think about, right? That keeps coming and again and again. When that is happening on a constant basis, for that person, association, sangaha. Sangaha is association. Sangaha asaktihi. Asaktihi is association happens. And it's not that you consciously made this association. This association has happened in spite of you being aware, because of the chinta of the Vishaya. There's a word called chinta, which is negative. There's a word called chintan in Hindi, which is very positive. Chintan is there, the chinta is there. Chinta, they say, chintan means very proper way of thinking. Chinta is very helpless way of thinking about everything. That is what chinta. And they say this fire, the real fire, burns this body after death, whereas this chinta is a fire which burns your mind even when you're alive. And how does it happen? We are seeing the process here. Okay, so that is how this asakti, pritihi, that priti, the play. See, we have when you say priti, it means asakti in terms of pritihi, in terms of I want tambura, as as Swamiji used to say. The I want tambura in the background is always there. Weekends also the tambura goes on. Weekdays also the tambura goes on. I want, and then you can fill up with anything. I want this to be there or this to not be there, and all those things that filling up, you can do that. And because of that, when the sangat priti hai, sanjayate samutpadyate kamaha. It is a desire is there naturally. Naturally, it builds up as a very strong desire, well-shaped desire. We're not talking about desire which comes and goes, but this is a well-shaped desire, which it's a make it or break it kind of a desire that is there, and that is called trishna, that hankering, that longing, that is there, and that trishna, what is it? So up to now, no problem. Even a desire is not a problem. Strong desire need not be a problem. So let us see what happens. Not all desires can be fulfilled. Pujya Swamiji says, not all desires can be fulfilled. If you're objective, you're saved. But if you're not objective, what happens to these desires? These desires, then which are being obstructed. What happens? What does the change that happens in you? Kutaschit pratihatat. Pratihatat means if there is something which is mentally blocking, obstructed. Some people are saying no. That is enough to take you off guard. Then if they say no for something, then krodha. Krodha is what? Krodha is abhijwalatmakaha. Krodha is anger. And here it is abhijwalatmakaha. You can see the anger in that person. Very hard to control. It can be either, anger is an expression which is an abstract, but you can see it all over that person, that anger, even physically. So that powerful this anger is. Krodha abhijayate. It just happens. Abhijayate means it just is born out of obstructed. So Anger is also, we can say, deflected desire, as Puja Swamiji says. And the desire is kama, and the deflected desire can end up being krodha, as Puja Swamiji was saying. So deflected kama is krodha. And what is the intensity of this anger? It can be as intense as the desire was. And so that is what we say, it is paravasha. You're not in your own hands. The desire is not in your own hands. It's not something pleasant. It's not a very long-term desire to be independent financially. It's not that kind of a desire. Even it can be that, but if it is out of if it is out of your hands, then it can be a krodha. It can be anger can naturally turn to krodha. And now until this we are familiar. What happens after krodha? We'll see. That is also very beautifully Bhagavan puts it, and it's something we have never. Huh?
One sentence.
Yeah, I think I can. Oh, I'm going to finish that also. Sorry, I will finish that verse also. So we will. So that way that both is covered like that, right? So let us quickly go to the next verse. Krodha sammoha samudbhave dhradayati. This krodha, once it is there, there's no coming back sometimes. Look at the way it goes. Krodhat bhavati sammohah.
Krodhat bhavati sammohah.
Sammohat smriti vibhramah.
Sammohat smriti vibhramah.
Smriti bhramshat buddhinashah.
Smriti bhramshat buddhinashah.
Buddhinashat pranashyati.
Buddhinashat pranashyati.
Krodhat bhavati sammohah. Bas, moha is translated delusion. Here moha is blackout. So you're blacked out. Puja Swami uses the word blacked out. Anger blacks one out, right? And then sammoha, from where what happens? Sammohat smriti bhramshah. Then you have a loss of memory. It's not really the loss of memory in terms of dementia or what is the other one? Alzheimer's. It is a loss of memory of what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. So that is sammoha. Then so the sammoha is you're not in your senses anymore, and then but that is because of a failure. Your memory doesn't serve you anymore, huh? Because the memory, what is in the memory? The memory is there. It says, hey, this situation has happened before, and when you reacted like this, this was the consequence. That memory is lost. Smriti bhramshah. Smriti bhramshat buddhi nashah. When we don't know, when we don't have the discernment about what to do and what not to do, and when we get carried away by the anger, that buddhi which says yes and no, that is gone. Buddhi nasha. Don't do. Be careful. Withdraw. That buddhi which says all this, that is lost. Buddhi nasha. Buddhi nashat. Buddhi nasha is what a big deal. The buddhi is nasha. The person is nash. Pranashyati. The person is lost. Is destroyed. So that is the verse goes on like that. Now let us see some details. They say the devil is in the details when it comes to marketing, but here the divinity is in the details. The divinity is in the details when it comes to Shastra. So that is why we cannot look into Shastra very superficially, or we cannot ask for the whole Gita in 3 minutes and every 18 chapters in 18 days. If somebody makes an ad, we all go for that. Because then they skip over all the details and they'll take you for a trip. And what you end up being satisfied that you have learned Gita or you have seen Gita in the entirety in without investing so much time. But then there's a trip, and then there's an emotional guilt because you only pick up in bits and parts and you make your own conclusions. All this problem is there. Here, the Shastra, the divinity is in the details. So what is the detail here? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha, as I told you, this person is deluded regarding regarding karya vishaya, what to be done and what not to be done, thus that delusion is there. Karya aviveka is sammoha. That is delusion, real delusion. Not getting, not thinking about what to be done and what not to be done. And because what not to be done, moha is what? Moha is basically, it's a kind of a adhyasa. It's a kind of a superimposition. Like we see the rope, but we superimpose snake. Here what? You see what to be done, but you superimpose on it and don't do it. There's what not to be done, and on that, we just blindly, we just superimpose, or we are blind towards that, and we just do that, right? This kind of a mix-up there. Okay, that happens, and then krodho hi sammudaha san, and the Bhagavan Bhashyakara Shankaracharya is explaining, even in those days, guru napi akroshayati, even teacher, a student can attack even a teacher because of krodha. A student can attack a teacher even because of krodha, that kind of a thing. He can even do ninda, he can censor him, he can put him down, or he can scold him. What not he can do because of the krodha, because of the anger. All this can happen. In a minute, all this can happen. This doesn't take time. We are giving the sequence, but it all happens in no time, right? Sammohat smriti bramshah. Because of this, you taking up to doing what should not be done, and you giving up what should be done. What happens? What is the reason for this? Because of this, what happens? When you do this, there is a smriti bramshah, brahma. Smriti vibramah. The word is there, right? What is smriti vibramah? Smriti means memory. Brahma is loss. Vibhramaha is there is a memory loss, but then this is not like a memory loss which we think. But here, what is the memory loss? Shastra Acharya Upadesha. Shastra, whatever you gained in terms of Shastra, in terms of the scriptures, knowledge of the scriptures, that is lost. Acharya, some good Upadesha. There may be a very good, very good Upadesha regarding you should not be doing, and you might have, had the thumb rule in your mind. This is how it happens, and I should not go for this and all that. But that is lost. I samskara. Then all this samskara, all this good samskara which you gained, very carefully gained, all that can be lost in 1 second. That loss of samskara is the memory loss we are talking about. I didn't expect this from this person. That kind of a other person can feel like that. That kind of a difference they see in this person when he's lost to his anger, and so that is a problem. All the assimilation, teaching, everything goes away, and that is a loss, memory loss we are talking about. Smritehe syat vibramah bramshah, and then this memory, anyway, when there's a thought, the thought also comes and goes, but that is not the problem. Here the problem is you have been working on this area, and say in the area of anger, and then this situation has happened in the past. It is not that it's always not a new situation. Sometimes we get upset and anger in the same type of situation again and again. Don't you think this is something we have to work on? And these are the situations being spoken here. And so smriti utpatti nimitta. So you have a beautiful situation where you can apply your wisdom. This time it's going to be different. We think so, but this anger, once it starts, then it all goes in the other direction. So you had the opportunity, but we lost the opportunity. Situation is an opportunity. So we are not here asking about giving up desires, not dealing with situations. We are not talking about controlling anger, because anger, it's out of aviveka, of what to be done and what not to be done. So there's no control here. There's only clearly knowing. Controlling means, there is some good thing about that. There's no good thing about that. So it's about knowing the vices as they are. And so that is why we are not talking about any. So this is the process we are trying to analyze with such depth. So we can apply and see, and without any short circuiting, right? So this is the problem we are analyzing. Smriti Brahmshat Smritihi. Tataha Smriti Brahmshate Buddhehe Nashah. So the Buddhi is lost. Buddhi is lost. Incapacitated. As Puja Swamiji says, the Buddhi is incapacitated. It has to, Buddhi is there with all the wisdom to say yes and no, but that is lost. When Buddhi is lost, Karya Vishaya Vivek Ayogyata. When the Yogya becomes an Ayogya, the Yogya, the you who are qualified, that you are qualified, who are qualified, when that qualification when your buddhi is lost, as a person you lose a qualification. Antakaranasya buddhehe nasha uchyate. When there is buddhi is when this wisdom is lost, the buddhi is as good as lost. And buddhi nashat pranashyati. The person is lost. That's a serious thing, right? Buddhi nashat pranashyati. And he is like a pashu. He becomes like a pashu, a sthanu. All these things are told. And that is how powerful this buddhi is an instrument. And as if the instrument is lost, it is as good. Such a powerful instrument, it is as good. It makes the person useless, good for nothing. And that is the problem which is being dealt here. Ataha tasya antakaranasya buddhehe nashat pranashyati. Purushartha, you are not available to put effort in the right way anymore. So this is the end of the discussion of the problem. And see, this is a very important shloka. Just for our own, for people like us, this is an area we can work on. So that way, it is a very useful shloka. And I think I'll stop here, and we'll continue in our next session further. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.